Get ready to be inspired by the people, stories, and opportunities in Africa. We're a global community of Africans and friends of Africa with no boundaries. Together, we celebrate the continent's successes and help provide solutions to some of its greatest challenges. Impact Africa airs live every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. GMT at listenvisionlive.com. You can also catch previous episodes on iTunes and on the show's website, impactafricaonline.com. Connect with Impact Africa on Twitter and Facebook at @UImpactAfrica. Together, we'll discover that the real Africa is full of amazing talents and great opportunities. Welcome to Impact Africa. Africa has long been associated with needing aid and handouts. Today, you'll learn so much more about this wonderful continent from enlightening stories, people, and ideas. Now, here is your host, Tope Fajinbesi.
Good morning, America, and good afternoon, Africa, and welcome to Impact Africa. We're really delighted to be here today. Today is the monthly panel discussion show, and we have loads and loads of interesting things to talk about today. And I'm going to introduce the wonderful ladies who are joining me today. I don't need to introduce Brenda, perhaps not. Binta, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, I'm more jet lagged than you. Binta Terrier, and she is the founder and one of the brains behind PLAD, Partnership League on African Development. Fantastic. And they have a very wonderful program coming up in March, and I hope we're going to talk about that on the show. And I'm not going to mess up your name. It's supposed to be Arnette, but Art Steele, yes. The founding partner of the law offices of Art Steele, and one of the resources that Africa has here to talk about this immigration issue, which is where we're going to start today. So you're both welcome to Impact Africa.
Thank you.
So, this is when people talk about immigration in the US or illegal immigration or, anything to do with the executive order or immigration reform, they are usually thinking about, Latinos.
Exactly.
Very little is known about the impact it has on the African immigrant community. And now the president has just proposed this new executive order. I don't know the difference between that and a real law. But what is that? What is this new noise about?
Okay, so you make a good point that a lot of people do focus on Latinos because obviously the border of South America or Central America and Mexico is, it's attached to the U.S. So obviously they do come at a greater pace. They can come more undetected. Someone coming from Africa obviously has to come via plane and some type of visa, and they have to go through some type of requirement. However, there are people who do come and overstay their visas, or they come when they're running away from conditions in their country, and then they become at some point undocumented. And so sometimes it does matter how you come, but the bottom line is they are also undocumented. And the good news is that this immigration executive action that President Obama signed in November does extend to anyone who is here who is undocumented, including Africans or anyone from any other continent, Asia or Europe, who is undocumented. Now, the difference between an executive action and a law is that Congress has to pass a law, which is what President Obama is encouraging them to do. However, the president does have the power to sign an executive action that can be temporary if he feels that there is a need for him to do so, and he obviously felt that there was a need in this case. Now, there are two things. There's a huge one, right? The executive action that extended what's called DACA, which was really for children who were brought here, DACA, for children who were brought here when they were young. It was a substitute for the DREAM Act.
Oh, okay. I remember that.
Because that was never passed.
Yes.
And so President Obama wanted to give relief to all of these children, many of them now adults, who had come, with their parents, who were brought here with their parents. And then this new executive action, so it extended some of the provisions in DACA, And I'll go over that in more detail. And it also created a new provision that allowed parents who were here who have United States citizens children or permanent resident children who can now apply. So it's DACA and DAPA, DACA and DAPA. Now, on the same day, a lot of people don't know, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, also extended temporary protective status, TPS, to those citizens of Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone due to the Ebola virus. And a lot of people just don't even know about that.
Yes, but what does that mean? Does that mean that if you're here from those three countries, you can stay even though you're on a visiting visa?
Yes. So now there requirements. If for the TPS, you have to be a citizen of Sierra Leone, Liberia, or Guinea. You don't need to have come because you were running away from Ebola.
Okay.
As long as you were here before November 20th, which is the day that they issued the TPS, you can apply for TPS, temporary protected status. So if you were here on a student visa and your student visa is about to run out and you want to stay. Now, the only thing about TPS is it's temporary protected status.
I was gonna ask you that. What does that mean? Like, does it give me 90 days?
Well,
90
it's for 18
years?
months.
Oh.
Yes. So it's for 18 months.
Essentially till Ebola is over.
Well, now that's the interesting thing about TPS. If you look at the history of a lot of different countries or conditions under which the president or the DHS has granted TPS, they often extend it. Now, that is not to say that they will do that this time. Whenever they issue TPS based on a certain condition, once the TPS is over, maybe a month or two before it expires, they will reevaluate the country conditions. So if it was because of Ebola, they will reevaluate the country conditions and see if they still need to extend this even for another year or two.
But you know what I hear her say, Binta, is so you can build a life here for the next 18 months, but isn't that kind of uncertain?
Not only that, it's uncertain, but also how do you make a living?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So with TPS, you get work authorization.
I see.
Yeah. You will be allowed to apply. Actually, when you send in your application for TPS, you can also send in your application for employment authorization, and that usually will take about 3 or 4 weeks before you receive your employment authorization. You will need to be fingerprinted. So what will happen is you'll send in your application. The TPS is just the status. The thing you're really wanting is the work authorization.
Yeah.
So you'll receive a letter saying we've received your application. While we're reviewing it, in the meantime, go and get your fingerprints. So you have to be fingerprinted. And then about 2 weeks, generally 2 weeks after your fingerprints, you'll get your employment authorization. Now, it will have an expiration date on it.
Yes.
And you have to give, when you go and apply for a job, hopefully the job will see that there's an expiration date. So you do only have that time period. Now,
but which employer would be willing to employ me for 18 months?
Yes.
It really depends. It depends on the kind of work that you're looking for, right? I mean, if you're a seasonal employee, maybe if it's Christmas time and they're only looking for someone to work for, a certain duration or 6 months or a year.
What if you are a professional? If you are a doctor, if you are a professor from a university,
well, yeah,
is only on the lower level. How about those high educated
if you're
ones?
A doctor or a professional
or
at a university, you probably will. Your job will probably find another provision under which to apply for you so that you could be here more permanently.
And
now there are work visas that they can use to apply for. I think what you have to remember is, there is a certain risk, right? If you're undercover and you're working under the table, right, and you're getting paid under the table, there's a certain risk, obviously, to coming forward, because now you're letting them know where you are.
Yes.
You're going to be fingerprinted.
Yes.
You're going to. I mean, you're already in the system, especially if you're African. You came here somehow through a plane, right? Unless you made
Unless
your
you
way
run
to
Mexico.
Mexico and you came through to the border.
Yeah.
That's very unlikely. But you're already in the system, so you're kind of letting them know where you are. But one of the other things that President Obama passed with this executive action is, what he wanted to do is he wanted to assure people to come forward, first of all, right? In order to do that, he had to let people know that, look, we're not going to be looking to deport you after this thing runs out.
Yeah.
And so what he did was he set the sort of the guidelines for what Homeland Security would look at in order to deport someone.
But let me ask you a question. This is good for people from those three countries. It's good for people who, kids who were brought here. But there are people who came to America like me when we came as students, who are on student visas. Is there any provisions for people who they're not out of status? They are on student visas. They have their 1 year practical training, and they're getting really challenged by employers who don't want to hire them. Once the employer hears you're on a OPT student visa, they say, oh no, we can't file an H-1B. Is there anything in the executive action for people like that?
Unfortunately, it's a very limited executive action. And I've gotten a lot of calls from people who will say, I have friends who, they don't have children who are citizens. It's not only for children. It's for people who have, if you came here and you had a child in the U.S., doesn't matter if you're undocumented or if you were out of status when you had this child. As long as that child was born before November 20th, 2014, you qualify. No questions asked. If you're here on a student visa, if you're here visiting and you had a child, you qualify for the DAPA. That's 3 years though.
Oh, you should have had a child. That's the thing I'm hearing here. That's what I'm hearing here. You were in school, you were trying to make ends meet, you should have just had a child. Oh my God.
No. So but that, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that it's only for children. And you had to come maybe from, because there is a huge focus on Latinos, that you had to come maybe from a Central American country. So that is a wider range of people that can apply for that, because
absolutely,
the reality is, especially in the African community, I mean, there are a lot of people who come here and do have children.
Yes.
I think what to answer to your question, I think if you are a student and you have graduated and you are looking for a job, as you said, you could get this work permit, these work visas.
If you
your employer, exactly. That's what the banks do in New York. When they hire you in these commercial banks, they give you a work visa. And I believe if you work for 5 years or stay at least at a certain period with this bank, they can apply for you to get the green card.
But it is, look, this is how I got the green card.
Yes.
The through a work authorization, but it is hard.
Right, and
it is difficult.
What I tell people is, and people, like I said, I've been getting a lot of calls, and if you're not in that category where you're DACA, DAPA, or you're TPS, and there are a lot of other TPS provisions also. Liberians were on deferred enforcement departure before they even issued the TPS. So there are a lot of provisions and a lot of executive actions that many citizens of different countries can have access to. The problem is nobody knows. And so what I would say to those people who can look at the executive action and say, okay, I'm not a citizen of Liberia, Guinea, or Sierra Leone, and I don't have a child, but I'm in some other kind of category. What I tell people is call an immigration lawyer.
Can we get this document somewhere, for instance, to put it on our website?
Yes, it actually, there's, I don't know if you're going to give a link to my website. I actually wrote a blog post on my website about the qualifications for applying for the DAPA, the DACA, and the TPS.
Well, what we can do then, anybody who has a website in the African community can link to your website if you give us the URL.
We're going to tweet it out, but you just say it on air so that anybody who is listening can go there and check it.
It's A Steele lawoffices.com, and once you get to the website, if you click on blog, you'll see it's I think the second and third, or the first and second one. But what I was going to say is that there are so many. The Immigration Act is this thick. It's a law that it's very complicated, that has a lot of exceptions, and exceptions to exceptions in it.
Yeah.
And so it is difficult to say. Someone called me and said, I have a lot of friends who don't qualify for DAPA, don't qualify for DACA, and they can't get TPS. And they can't get political asylum. Is there any? And no, he didn't say that. He said, is there anything else for them? And I said, there's no way I can tell that.
Yes.
Because every single case is different. Even every single DACA case or DAPA case, it's not going to be the same. Even though they qualify, every TPS case is not going to be the same. So a lot of times people will just say, I got here and I've passed my 1 year, so I can't apply for asylum anymore, because they know the rule. They think they know the rule of you have to be here for a year. And if you're here for more than a year, you can't apply for asylum. That may be true. That may not be true. But the asylum is not the only relief, for permanent relief for immigrants.
And I think what I hear you say, really, apart from the fact that you should have had a child before November 22, and I know somebody who, I hope she's watching this show, who had a child who is going to call you and try and get this thing filed because she's hiding somewhere in Pennsylvania. But what I hear you say is, don't say you want to handle this on your own.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges that we as Africans have. Yeah, or not handle it, just ignore it. Yes. Yeah, go to somebody who is a professional, who is learned, whose job it is to figure this out for you, looking at your situation. And if you're following us at You Impact Africa, we're going to be tweeting out Art's website. Hopefully, so many people in our community can come out and realize that this immigration issue isn't just about Latinos.
It's not.
It is, about all of us as, Africans as well. But we couldn't be talking about immigration forever, yes. But we will not be. So I'm hoping that people can follow up with you, yes. And, get some more information, and we can all, get some more Africans the relief they need. We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the news and things that have been happening all around the continent. Don't go away.
You are listening to Impact Africa. To connect with the program, please call 1-443-499-2755. That's 1-443-499-2755. You may also send an email to info@impactafricaonline.com or tweet @UImpactAfrica. Now, back to our show.
Thank you very much. And, honestly, we almost got carried away during the break about immigration issues because, hey, at some point, all of us are immigrants. I remember when my employer was starting my green card filing a couple years ago, and one of the HR persons was like, no, we don't file, we don't do this. The supervisor, who is an American white male, said, we're all immigrants. It's just a matter of when we came.
Yes.
So she just came, but I've been here maybe 100 years through my ancestors. So I'm hoping that, we can get more education on this issue via your website. But now we're going to deal with news and news roundup. And the news sources, my number one news source is Ije Reads News on Facebook. Like I said last week, if you haven't been to Ije Reads News on Facebook, you've been living under a rock, make sure you go there. She rounds it up, not just on African issues, everything. She's my, news source right there. But one of the first things I want to, discuss is a very, very happy news. And that happy news is Barbie has competition in Nigeria.
Yes.
Yes. And, this African Queens of Africa dolls. and they're selling currently almost $10,000 a month. I have bought some and brought it for people here. And, we're showing the pictures of some of these African queens. And not only are these dolls, depicting people of our color or people, wearing African attire, they're also coming with books about the different queens that they represent. And this is just fantastic. I'm hoping to get him on the show, but, what do you think about this doll's art?
I think it's amazing. And I think that, I grew up as a little girl with white dolls. And,
yeah.
And I was in Liberia, and so I don't know how much of an effect it had on me. I knew it was different. I knew that this wasn't what beauty looked like, but it did give me an idea, at the very least, of what I thought white women looked like. I thought all white women looked like Barbies, and even still, that's not a good impression to give a young girl. For her to set her beauty standards for women, for women to look like that. But I think this doll is amazing, especially when it comes with the book, because I think that, I was fortunately enough to grow up in Africa, and we went to school there, and we learned about African history and all of the queens and the kings of Africa. But for, someone who's growing up here in America, this is a wonderful gift, because I started here, I think, in 7th grade. I don't remember learning about African queens and kings. And so if you have an American child or a child who's from African descent growing up in America, this would be a wonderful gift. And I think people are attracted to it because it looks like them.
Absolutely. And which brings me to the question I have for you, Binta. Should dolls and toys reflect the race issue? Are kids too little to start, gravitating towards dolls that look like me? Should we really bring this issue in toys or no?
This is something, but I'm glad you asked this question, because I'm in a mixed marriage.
Ah, yes,
and
that's true.
My children are mulattoes.
Ah.
Okay, and it's amazing how they all turn out to be very, very light-skinned. The youngest
yeah, she's
one,
married to a French man.
Yeah, and they're all born with blue eyes, and they turn green and gray until they are. Seriously, when my daughter was born, in the hospital, Sibley Hospital, I told the doctor they made a mistake. It cannot be my daughter. She was whiter than the white kids, and with light blue eyes more than the white kids themselves. So, and even the nurses, when they walk in with the baby into my room, they walk back, and then they come back in, and then they look at the thing they put on your hand,
goodness.
and compare that of the child to make sure. In the neighborhood, when I used to take my kids for a walk, people ask me, who are the parents?
Because they think you're the nanny.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then when my daughter, the oldest one, grew up, and she was in this French international school, the other kids will ask her, what are you?
Wow.
Yeah, they would ask her, what are you? And I remember parents, white parents, they would ask me, when your kids grow up, how is he or she going to identify herself? You see, the thought never occurred to me until grown-ups started bringing it up.
Wow.
Grown-ups have more problems with this race issue than the kids themselves.
Wow.
And then when my daughter came to me and said, somebody asked me whether I'm black or white, I said, well, tell that person that you are a beautiful brown girl. You are lucky to have a white father and a black mother. Look at your complexion. You don't need the sun. You have a built-in tan. If you were ugly, why does the white people like to tan themselves to get your color?
Wow.
You see, so it's the parents. It's really the parents who have a problem with it. If you feel comfortable with it, your kids feel comfortable with it.
Wow.
In my household, we don't have a color issue. We don't have a color problem. Our children, if you go to my house, you have all dark shade of kids who grew up practically in my house. You see, but it doesn't. I don't think even occur to either the white kids who come to my house or the black kids.
Wow.
It's a non-issue for them. You see.
Wow.
My daughter never ever asked me about that again. I used to look at a bouquet of flower. If it was all white, it's dull. It's ugly. If you mix the colors in the bouquet, that's what makes it beautiful.
Wow.
You see, so I think it's the parents' duty to not dwell on the color, We are the one who create the problems for our children.
And that's an excellent point. And my brother is married to a white lady, and they have kids. And until now that you were talking, I didn't even think about what's their color. They just look cute to me. But I think that I'm very glad that these dolls are coming up because kids can at least see things in different shades and feel a sense of belonging somewhere. So that's really fantastic. That's one of the good news that I saw on Ije Reads News. So this one is rather funny, but it's not really funny. The next news from Ije Reads News is Cameroon proposes additional tax on beer to raise money to fight Boko Haram. And it's funny, but it's serious.
Not funny, yes, because they're having a huge problem.
Yes, they're having a huge problem, and they're confronting the issue. And it brings the question to how do struggling African countries find the revenue to fight these issues that come up? This is a security concern. They cannot, ignore it, but they don't have enough money, and now they're taxing beer. Like, what are some of the ways that African governments can perhaps raise money without taxing the vices of people?
I mean, I think that's a very difficult question because there isn't much money to be taxed anyway. When you really think about it, when you think about the economies and you think about the consumerism in African countries and how, like here you go and there's a sales tax. You go to a store, there's a sales tax, and you pay a sales tax on everything, and you pay a gas tax. Not even discussing income tax, which it's just in a lot of countries are just kind of whoever wants to file sometimes every 10 years or whatever. But I think it's difficult because there isn't much to tax, and when you look at something like beer where people drink it, you can probably trace where it comes in, how it goes out. It may be their only viable option because they know it's consumed a lot, the only other thing you can do is probably tax corporations. But the people won't be able to, sustain an increase in tax just because they probably don't have enough money as it is.
Anyway, yes, it's true. Which brings me to the question, if we were to tax corporations, that might be an incentive for this corporation to say, okay, then we're leaving your country. Is there any other place that maybe African governments can find money?
First of all, I don't know if you saw one discussion that took place. I think last year, there was Mo Ibrahim, there was Ngozi, the head of the African Union. There was Obasanjo. There were the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and we had a discussion, about African leaders, their legacy, and then one of the things that Mo Ibrahim said is that, "Come invest in Africa, but pay your taxes." You see, so if our government are really strict on making sure that companies that invest in Africa also pay their taxes, I think that could help. I'm not saying it's going to resolve the problem, but in PLAD's view, the best way to fight Boko Haram is to ascertain that we don't have a recruitment ground. You have to cut off that recruitment ground. And the way to cut off that recruitment ground is to empower the African youth. Do you know what is the unemployment rate in Africa? So if you can find a way to occupy the young men and women in Africa who are idle, who have nothing to do, if you occupy them in such a way that Boko Haram cannot access or reach them, you have really defeated Boko Haram.
You're not lying. You're not lying because I remember my dad. He used to have a farming business, and one day I asked him why he was going to the north of Nigeria, because we're from the south, to recruit people to work on the farm. He said, because I'm going to pay them the exact same money Boko Haram is going to pay them.
You see,
if I can pay them to come work for me and do productive work and live in peace, why should I let them be available to somebody else? And I think that's a very that's a very big topic for me, who is an accountant. And I used to be an auditor in Nigeria. And I would see companies, they would say, oh, we pay 85% petroleum profit tax to Nigeria. So we're already doing our bit. However, being an accountant, I know that you're paying 85% tax of your bottom line and you've expensed everything to your home country.
Not only that, they have something which they call, particularly in the mining industry, they have something which is called transfer pricing. In transfer pricing, what they do is that, I'm not quite sure how the mechanics works, is that they are supposed to pay taxes on their profit margin. But what they do is that they sell to their subsidiaries at below market price, and then they claim that revenue as the gain. So they pay taxes on a very small amount of what they really gain, and then the subsidiary turn around and go and sell it in the international market at the higher price.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because the U.S. government, I mean, that's become a huge area of law for the IRS, because not only are they doing that abroad, they're also, the IRS is afraid that they're writing off all of those expenses that lowers their income, that they then have to pay here if that income is not deferred or somehow locked in to the foreign country. So it's an issue for even the U.S. But you're right, and there are plenty of ways to get around paying taxes. And also, even if you are paying taxes, you're paying it to the government. And what is the government doing? How is the government giving the money to the people, or how are they using it to help the people? And we don't even have to go into corruption.
No. Don't make me.
That's a different issue. But I think what's very interesting, I was watching a documentary on Firestone in Liberia. And it, without going into too much detail, basically, they had an interest, even during the war. They needed to go back to Liberia. When they were fighting, they had to go back, because it was the cheapest production of rubber that they could get anywhere in the world. And even though when the war started and they left, they stayed out for about, I think, a year or so, and then had to go back. And so a lot of these companies or corporations have an interest in the country where they are to have a stable government. Yes. And that is what I think these countries should try to enforce. But again, the question is, the government is just going to get more taxes. I don't know. I don't know if corporations necessarily would have a difficult time paying more taxes, because it still won't
but some people
anything
have
close to what they pay here. But it's going to go to the government. And
then we all know what happens from there. And, I'm not even going to go there. But there's so much news. I'm hoping that we can get to some of the other news when we come back from this break. But if you like any of this news and you want to be informed about, this discussions, please go to Ije Reads News on Facebook, and you'll be seriously informed. We're going to take a music break right now. When we come back, they're going to answer questions on the Africa 101 quiz segment. Let's see how ready they are. Don't go away.
Hey, my friend, time now money. Make you not play with your work, yeah. No gossip, no spoil another man. Use your time well, do better thing. Money that they come from heaven, do better thing. Money goes come. Now true word that they tell you so. Hey, true word not be cheap, my brother. Not the spoil person, you know good, you hear? Time well, no waka, no gossip, no spoil another man. Use your time well, do do better thing. Money no dey come from heaven. Do better thing, money go come. Now true word that they tell you so. Pulling and low. Hey.
You are listening to Impact Africa. To connect with the program, please call 1-443-499-2755. That's 1-443-499-2755. You may also send an email to info@impactafricaonline.com or tweet @UImpactAfrica. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to Impact Africa. And before we go ahead with quizzing my fellow panelists here, I'm going to take a call from the United Kingdom. Tolu, are you there?
Hi.
Hello. You have a contribution or a question?
I've got a contribution. I particularly like your discussion today about the dolls. I've got a 6-year-old girl that goes to school here. I'm happy that she goes to school with her British friends. But sometimes you know that there's a difference. When there was an episode once where she was playing with some of her friends and they were trying to figure out who was going to be the Disney princess, to act the play of Disney princess. But she was told that she couldn't because there was one of them that was black.
Wow.
Now I'm imagining that if you have so many of these black dolls floating around and you've actually given some of it to other kids at present, they will be informed that there could be black people that are very beautiful as well.
Wow. Wow.
So really, I would buy those dolls. I would also give those dolls as gifts to some of her friends that are in school. I spent hundreds of pounds buying Barbies and the accessories. I think we need more of those kind of dolls that portray the African origins for our kids that grow up, especially outside of Africa.
Fantastic, fantastic. And that is just an excellent point. And that's something that I didn't think about. This is a way to educate other people. So it's not even as much as, knowing your child, knowing who they are. It's about the people who are interacting with them, also knowing about your child and accepting them. I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that contribution, Tolu, and thank you for tuning in too.
Yeah, thank you for the show. I've enjoyed it today.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, I'll make sure that we do the Africa 101 first before we run out of time for this show. And I'm going to hug my tablet so that you both don't see the questions.
Okay.
So the way we usually do this is Binta, why do you have that look on your face? the African icon that we're going to discuss today is Muammar Gaddafi. And this is, the thing about the people that we discuss on this show is not that we endorse or we oppose or we do anything. These are just people who have done something, who have shaped somehow positively or negatively or mixed, the landscape in Africa. And we want to make sure that we are, aware of who they are. So I'm going to start with you, since your name starts with A and hers starts with B.
Okay.
And you have 20 seconds, or no, 10 seconds. Come on, it's multiple choice.
Okay.
To answer the question. So your first question is, which of the following is true about the coup that brought Gaddafi into power? A, all male members of the royal family were killed in it. B, all women of the royal family were killed in it. C, it was bloodless. D, only the king was killed in it.
Oh, wow. This is Gaddafi we're talking about, huh?
Yeah.
I'll say D, the king was killed.
One of the reasons why I like this particular question is because when I saw it, I also got it wrong. Because I thought, this is Gaddafi, he killed everybody. But no, it was bloodless.
Oh.
Can you even believe that?
That's my man.
Can you even believe that? So that's something I had a stereotype. I thought, oh my goodness, he killed all the royal family members. That was the option I even picked.
Yeah, but you have to understand one thing. All African leaders start very well with good ideas of reform.
Yes.
Then somewhere along the line, they lose it. They just lose it somewhere. I don't know. I
think it's because no one's watching, and
no accountability.
No accountability.
Yeah.
You get in, you become the ally of the U.S., and they kind of basically don't care what you do until it gets to the point where it's uncomfortable for them.
Let me say something.
I knew this was. I knew Gaddafi was going to be a controversial figure.
No. You see, it's easy for us to always blame somebody else.
Oh, no, I'm
for
not
what we do.
I'm not
you see what I mean?
Else.
You see, if we have, if as what you said is true, then our leaders allowed that to happen.
Oh yeah. Well, the other thing, the other. I mean, I think there are a number. I don't think it's just one thing. I think that there are a few things. The other thing I was going to say is, and actually is a point that my uncle, who worked for the World Bank for many years, brought up. It said, when a lot of people get into power in Africa, a lot of times they come from nothing. You don't run it. You're not a congressman here, like how it is here. You run a campaign, you get millions of money contributed, and you have this fund, and you're going to get lifetime Secret Service.
Yeah.
Whatever speaking engagements that are going to pay you millions. You become a millionaire.
So you have essentially 4 years to make it, or you lose it. But
you have access to billions of dollars, and then somebody is telling you. You have to let all of that go, and you go to nothing. And a lot of countries don't have pensions set up for their presidents, don't have anything. So you basically are getting notoriety from everyone in the international community. You're well respected, and you're now supposed to just give that up.
And one thing I want to say is, I want to say two things actually. The first one is, I never want to go into politics anywhere. Africa or America.
You have to be not the one.
Because I always say that everyone has a price, including me and my high moral standards. I don't want to be in the market when the person who can afford me comes. Because the truth is that you have a price. Mine might be a private jet. I always talk about it on Facebook. If you can buy me a private jet, I'll marry you tomorrow. But so it might be somebody buy me a private jet and I'll just give them the entire Nigerian treasury. Who knows? But seriously, on the second note, I'm an auditor here in the U.S. and I can tell you, stealing and corruption has no country barriers. No. This is what I do day in, day out. And the amount of stealing that I see here of public funds, it's unreal. It's as long as there's an opportunity, people will steal. But let's go back to Gaddafi. I don't want to forget. So let's go to your question, which is very easy. Gaddafi attended the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst. True or false?
I have no idea. I know the truth of the matter. I know nothing about Gaddafi.
Okay, but you have to guess what answer though.
What?
Time is up. Time is up. Can you help her?
He attended the military academy
of Sandhurst.
Yes.
True.
Sure.
True. Oh, it's false. Okay, now we have 0-0.
Okay.
Next question. What was the political ideology that Gaddafi espoused in his book called the Green Book? A, the Universal Theory. B, the Universal African Theory. C, the Third Universal Theory. D, Gaddafism.
I would say D, Gaddafi.
No, that's how
Green Book.
Yes.
I would say the second one.
It's the third one.
What is the
Gaddafi.
The Third Universal Theory.
Third Universal.
Can you hear that sound in the background? That's why you guys get it wrong.
So wait, what is the universal? What did he think?
You see, that's the homework. Now you and everybody listening has to go read about that. That's the point. Okay, let's go to you. Which of the following was a policy during Gaddafi's rule? A, free food for all civil servants. B, a car and house for all school teachers. C, free medical care for all in Libya. D, none of the above.
C.
Correct. Even I was surprised about that. So now we have 1-0. Okay,
yes.
this is your chance.
Okay.
To even up. Which two African countries did Gaddafi lead a war against? A, Ghana and South Africa. B, Kenya and Chad. C, Egypt and Chad. D, Togo and Nigeria.
Interesting.
I had no idea he did that.
Yeah.
Neither did I.
You said, what was the one? Egypt and who else?
Oh, time up.
That's the one I'll pick.
But that's the one that's correct.
Okay.
Egypt and Chad. Egypt and Chad, that's correct. Okay, so now 1-1, no pressure. In what year was an assassination attempt made on Gaddafi's life? A, 1949, B, 1993, C, 1972, D, 2014.
2014. He was already dead. It has to be A, I guess.
No, it's 1993. I didn't even know that either. I thought the first time they tried to kill him was when they killed him.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm sure there are many other attempts that nobody is.
Yeah, nobody
People
knew
are
about,
too
yeah.
embarrassed to talk about.
Exactly.
I know. So right now we have 1-1.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the tiebreaker,
Okay.
which is the final question. So whoever is the first to know it should just
Answer. Okay.
yes. How many years did Gaddafi rule Libya for? A, 41 years. B, 20 years. C, 70 years. D, 4 years.
41.
41.
Oh, you're both correct and you're both winners.
I
I had no idea. 41 years. Was he the traditional ruler or what?
remember growing up in Liberia and knowing who Gaddafi was.
Oh my goodness. Who does that? 41
in
years.
1985. So
wow.
it couldn't be anything.
Oh, you know what would be interesting your next show?
Yeah.
Is to go over leaders and their legacy. What did they actually achieve in 41, 30, 45, 55?
But you know why that's a good idea, but you know why I would decline? Because I always try not to talk about leaders, African leaders.
The legacy.
Because
like
you know,
Gaddafi here is a leader.
no, yeah, but I try not to talk about them because most of the time when we're talking about African leaders, then we veer away from the show's mission, which is solutions.
Okay. Then.
Because African leaders can be very controversial. There's some people who are going to love Gaddafi, and there's some people who are just going to hate him. So, but I think that love him or hate him, we should still just, find out about Libya and find out about who they are. Okay. But you're two leaders that I see here who are shaping one way or the other the African, continent, and I'm very glad that you're here, and I'm happy to talk about both of you. So before we wrap up the show, I want you to say, do you have anything coming up?
Oh boy. I think one of the reasons I really started my own firm is because I work for a big law firm, and I did corporate international tax for a long time. And one of the reasons I really started my own law firm is because I focus on trust in estates. I do immigration, and because I'm an immigrant, so it's I enjoy doing that. But one of the things that I found about minorities in general, minorities, American minorities and Africans here in the U.S., is that we don't really plan our estate, or we don't leave a legacy financially for our children. And I used to have mixed feelings about that growing up, because your parents work hard, you are taught to work hard, you want your children to work for what they have, but then I started to get around people who I saw had this financial backing.
Had this cushion.
And it really does make a difference when you look at all of the people, even in the U.S., who are in public interest work, who work for USAID, or who can do Peace Corps, or who can do all of those things that go back to Africa, are people who can afford to work for $20,000, $30,000 a year because their parents can pay their rent, because their parents left them money, because they don't have to worry about paying their student loans. And so one of the things I really enjoy doing is talking to people who feel like they don't. The other reason also is because we feel like we don't have anything. I don't have $1 million to leave to my children. Why bother?
Yeah.
You don't need $1 million, you know? Even if you can go out and get a life insurance policy that's $25,000 or $30,000, that's tax-free money that your children will have should something happen to you. If you spend all of your life, you know, buying a house, and you have maybe $30,000, $40,000 or $100,000 left on the house, and something happens to you and you have no insurance policy, your children have to now sell this house or figure out something to do with the house because they can't afford it. So one of the things I really enjoy talking about is how we can pass a financial legacy to our children. Wow. And you don't really need to have much for it to make a difference.
Wow. I think everybody who's listening to this show who's an immigrant needs to contact you, because this is something that we really are lacking. And it's not just to spoil our children, but it's to make sure that when we hear, we make an impact here and we leave a name as well. And I'm going to ask you what PLAD has going on. I know that you all have fantastic things coming up. And I want you to talk about the Abuja thing and so many other initiatives that you guys have.
Yes. Well, first, you know, I discussed last time the Mali project,
yes,
which is ongoing, our solar. Again, that goes back to precisely Boko Haram. We have all these kids who have nothing to do, and we're trying to engage them. And one way is also through this solar energy program that we are going to take care of. And also, the Abuja program is still on track. We are just praying that elections go well and there's no problem.
Amen.
This way we can stay on course.
Amen.
Because the problem of Africa is not lack of wanting to do something, is that there's always something coming up that that inhibits you from doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Like Ebola coming out of nowhere.
Yes.
That derail us. And now the elections, we're praying that things, you know, work.
You and 170 million other Nigerians. That, you know, because every day you read the news, it's...
No, success. We have to say, as you know, PLAD is an advocacy NGO, but one thing we are very happy that has started moving forward is land grab issues in Africa. Some of our leaders are really focusing on it. And one of those leaders is the president of Liberia. In January, she's putting a stop to British companies coming into Liberia and grabbing the land.
Wow.
So we have to applaud her for
doing
this.
Liberia!
Yes, we have to applaud the president of Liberia for this.
I think she was forced to.
No, I don't think so. I think we have to.
But I'm glad that it happened. I'm happy. Yes, that
so
happened.
that is a success story.
Fantastic.
And we have to applaud any of our leaders who does it right. Okay? And for Nigeria, one news bit of Nigeria is the Minister of Agriculture, Akinwumi, also have been recognized for his good work in the agricultural sector in Nigeria. We have to give him a credit for that. And others hopefully will follow. Hopefully.
Well, fantastic. I'm very glad that, you know, there's so much that we can, you know, benefit, and African immigrants can benefit from planning for their kids, planning for themselves, planning for retirement, and also planning so that your children don't inherit student loans. Big deal. I'm going to Philadelphia after this show, and I'm talking about student loans precisely to a bunch of professionals. So, and I'm also very glad that, you know, you're able to bring these issues of land grab to the forefront. I wish you all the best. Again, we'll tweet out your websites and people can follow up with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed myself and I've learned a lot. And I hope that those who have been watching and listening from, you know, everywhere have done the same thing. Please make sure you follow up with my guest today and know your status, and don't ignore your status as an immigrant. Find out what, you know, really can happen.
And don't listen to your friends who are not immigration lawyers.
Exactly.
Or your family members.
Exactly. But, you know, between today and next week when we meet again, please do something. to impact Africa. Don't just complain. Do something. What is going to be your role to make sure that, we leave a better continent for our kids? That's what this show is about. And I'm hoping that in our homes that we can also take the initiative to do something good for Africa. It's been a pleasure being here again today. I pray for God's grace and the ability to be here again next week and the week after that. But until then, please keep impacting Africa. Good morning.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Africa. Please join us again next Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. GMT at listenvisionlive.com. Have a good week and keep impacting Africa. Get ready to be inspired by the people, stories, and opportunities in Africa. We're a global community of Africans and friends of Africa with no boundaries. Together, we celebrate the continent's successes and help provide solutions to some of its greatest challenges.